Welcome to today's deep dive. This is going to be a bit of a head scratcher. We're digging into the death of Suchir Balaji, an AI engineer who worked at OpenAI.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that name.
Yeah, they're the folks behind ChatGPT, you know.
Yeah, of course.
And Suchir passed away under some seriously suspicious circumstances right before he was supposed to testify against them.
Wow.
Pretty wild, right? So what we're trying to figure out here is, was this actually a suicide, like the San Francisco police say? Or did Suchir maybe stumble onto something that made him a threat?
Okay, yeah.
We've got a bunch of interviews with Suchir's mother, Pima, who has been really digging for the truth. Plus a ton of news reports that have been covering the whole thing.
Okay, I'm interested to hear about this.
Yeah, it's a story with a lot of pieces. So let's start with Suchir. He was like this brilliant guy working on the AI models that power ChatGPT. But then something changed. He leaves OpenAI and starts publicly criticizing his own creation, talking about copyright violations and problems with the data it uses.
Ah, that's interesting.
Right. And these aren't just little technical nitpicks. These criticisms get to the heart of what makes AI so powerful,
Yeah.
but also potentially dangerous.
Yeah, I can see that.
Think about it. If an AI is using copyrighted material without permission, who's actually responsible? And if the data that it's trained on is flawed, can we actually trust the output? These are huge questions that Suchir was raising.
And he's bringing up some good points.
Essentially, he was arguing that this tech he helped create, it was more than just flawed. It was potentially really harmful. And then just a week before he's supposed to testify in this huge New York Times lawsuit against OpenAI about copyright infringement, he's gone.
Wow.
The police ruled it a suicide, and they did it fast, like 40 minutes fast.
Oh, wow.
But here's the thing. They never found a suicide note.
Really?
Does that seem odd to you?
Yeah, it does seem a little strange.
Suchir's mother, Pima, definitely thought so. From what she said in interviews, his apartment was a mess. Like there had been a struggle there. And there were these bloodstains that didn't really fit a typical suicide scene. She even used ChatGPT itself to analyze the bloodstain patterns.
Whoa.
Which, according to her, backed up her suspicions.
So she's using the technology against itself almost.
Yeah, right. Now that's thinking outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more. Pima says Suchir's computer was left on for 3 days straight, and someone had wiped his entire Google Drive clean before she could get to it.
Oh, wow.
Now, if this was a suicide, why go through all that trouble to delete his data?
Yeah, that's suspicious.
Right. It just raises more questions.
You'd think if someone was genuinely suicidal, digital footprints wouldn't really be top of mind.
Yeah, exactly. And it gets even more complicated. Pima says that she was initially told that her son's body was too decomposed to view, which again seems kind of strange.
Yeah.
But she pushed for a second autopsy, a private one, and that report came back with some really eyebrow-raising terms. Atypical, abnormal, worrisome. You don't usually see those words in a straightforward suicide report.
Yeah, that definitely casts a different light on things. What could those terms actually mean in this context?
Well, that's what's so baffling. We don't have all the answers yet. But these details, they really seem to contradict that initial suicide ruling. Yeah. And then comes the really interesting part. Elon Musk steps in and publicly supports Pima's claims.
Really?
Now, this is the guy who actually co-founded OpenAI, although he left later on because of disagreements about their direction. But he's been very vocal about the dangers of unchecked AI. So his support for Pima adds like a whole other layer to this story.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear about Musk's involvement. Why do you think he's chosen to get involved in this particular case?
It's a great question. And it gets to the heart of what might be at stake here. Musk has been warning about the potential for AI to become dangerously powerful, even going as far as calling it an existential threat. You know, whether you agree with him or not, his involvement lends a lot of credibility to Pima's quest for answers. He's got a huge platform and a lot of influence, and he's using it to really shine a spotlight on this whole case.
So what does he think happened to Suchir? And what exactly is he trying to protect us from when it comes to OpenAI?
Well, he hasn't explicitly said. But it's clear that he's very concerned about OpenAI's approach to AI development. He's criticized them for being too secretive, for being too focused on just pushing the boundaries of what's possible, without enough consideration for the potential consequences. And remember, this is all happening against the backdrop of this massive lawsuit against OpenAI, where they're being accused of using copyrighted material to train their AI models.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a potential whistleblower, mysterious death, a powerful tech company, and Elon Musk sounding the alarm. It's a recipe for a very unsettling story. to say the least.
Definitely unsettling.
And Pima is hoping that Musk's support might be enough to actually get the FBI to take a closer look at the case. She believes that her son's death wasn't just a personal tragedy, but a warning about how far some tech companies might go to silence their critics.
It makes you think. If someone with Suchir's knowledge and access could be silenced so easily, what does that mean for the rest of us? What happens when we try to hold these powerful institutions accountable?
Yeah, that's the chilling part of this whole thing. It raises questions about the level of protection offered to whistleblowers, especially in the tech industry. We've seen similar cases in the past where people who tried to expose wrongdoing ended up dead under suspicious circumstances.
Really concerning.
So what can be done to better protect whistleblowers?
Yeah.
What kind of safeguards could be put in place? Well, that's a conversation for a little bit later in this deep dive. But for now, we've got a lot to unpack with Suchir's story.
Absolutely.
We've got the conflicting accounts of his death, the missing suicide note, the wiped data, that second autopsy report. It's a lot to process.
Yeah, it is.
And we haven't even gotten to the potential implications of his work with AI and the broader ethical concerns surrounding this technology.
All right.
What did Suchir know that might have made him a target? And what does his story tell us about the potential dangers of AI itself? We'll be diving deeper into all of this in just a moment.
Suchir's case it really brings to light this disturbing pattern we see with whistleblowers. Not just in tech, but across so many different industries. These are people who risk their careers, their reputation, sometimes even their lives, to expose wrongdoing.
Yeah, it's incredible. The courage it takes to be a whistleblower, going up against these powerful entities, often with tons of resources at their disposal. What kind of protection do they really have?
Well, unfortunately, the level of protection is often really inadequate. The laws vary so much from country to country, and even when there are laws in place, they can be tough to actually enforce. There's often this massive power imbalance between the whistleblower and the organization they're accusing.
Right, and that power imbalance, it can manifest in so many ways. Legal intimidation, smear campaigns, financial pressure. These are just some of the tactics that can be used to silence whistleblowers.
Exactly. And in Suchir's case, the fact that his Google Drive was wiped clean before his mother could access it, it raises serious concerns about evidence tampering. It suggests that someone went to great lengths to cover their tracks.
It really does. And it's worth noting that Suchir's mother, Pima, she's been incredibly persistent in challenging the official narrative surrounding her son's death. She has repeatedly called for a more thorough investigation, and she's been very vocal in her belief that there's foul play involved.
Her determination is really remarkable, especially considering the unimaginable grief that she must be going through. She's essentially taking on this system that seems designed to protect those in power, rather than those who speak truth to power.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this brings us back to Elon Musk and his involvement in this case. He's been a pretty vocal critic of OpenAI's approach to AI development, arguing that they're moving too fast and being too secretive. He's even called for a pause on the development of advanced AI systems, warning about the potential for some really catastrophic consequences.
Right, and some might argue that Musk has his own motives for speaking out, given his history with OpenAI and his own ventures in the AI field. But regardless of his motivations, his involvement has amplified Pima's calls for a deeper investigation. And it's brought this issue of whistleblower protection to a much wider audience.
And it's important to note that Musk's concerns about OpenAI echo a lot of what Suchir was trying to expose. The potential for harm, the lack of transparency, the ethical dilemmas, all surrounding this powerful technology.
Exactly. And this goes beyond just OpenAI. We're seeing similar concerns raised about other tech giants and their AI initiatives. There's this growing sense that we're entering uncharted territory, and the potential for misuse is just enormous.
It's like we're standing at the edge of a technological precipice, and we're not entirely sure what lies ahead.
And in this context, the role of whistleblowers becomes even more crucial. They're often the ones sounding the alarm, warning us of the potential dangers before it's too late.
Right, but if they're not protected, if they're silenced or discredited, then we're all at risk.
Exactly. Suchir's story is a stark reminder that we can't just blindly trust these tech giants to self-regulate. We need robust oversight, independent investigations, and strong legal frameworks to hold them accountable.
Absolutely. And we need to create a culture where whistleblowers are celebrated, not vilified. They're the ones who help keep these powerful institutions in check, who expose wrongdoing and make sure that the public interest is being served.
Yeah, without them, we're all vulnerable.
So we've been talking about Suchir Balaji, the OpenAI engineer who died under those mysterious circumstances, just before he was going to testify against the company. And his story has really shaken people up. It's easy to see why.
It's like something right out of a dystopian novel. You've got a brilliant scientist creating something that could change the world, only to realize that it could also be incredibly dangerous. And then before he can even warn anyone, he's gone.
Yeah, it's a chilling thought and brings up so many questions about the power these tech giants have, the ethics of AI development, and how far they might go to protect their secrets.
And what's really unsettling is the silence from OpenAI. They've issued a few brief statements expressing their sadness over Suchir's death, but they've been pretty evasive when it comes to addressing the concerns he raised about their AI models.
It's almost like they're hoping this whole thing will just blow over, that the public will just move on to the next headline and forget about Suchir and his warnings.
Right.
But Suchir's mother, Pima, isn't letting them forget. She's determined to find out exactly what happened to her son. And she's not backing down.
Her tenacity is really inspiring. She's facing a tough battle, but she's not giving up.
And she's not alone. Elon Musk, even with his own history with OpenAI, has publicly come out and supported her search for answers. He's using his platform to amplify her voice and to draw attention to the potential dangers of AI development that's not checked.
And it seems like people are listening. There's been so much media coverage, online discussions, even calls for investigations into OpenAI's practices.
Yeah, it's clear that Suchir's story has hit a nerve. It speaks to this growing unease about how fast technology is advancing and the lack of transparency and accountability around it. We're seeing it with AI, but also with other emerging technologies.
It's like we're all just rushing into a future we don't fully understand, and we're not asking enough questions about the risks.
We're putting our faith in these tech companies to guide us. But what happens when their interests don't line up with our own? What happens when profit comes before ethics and human well-being?
These are tough questions, but they're questions that we absolutely need to be asking.
Suchir's story is a wake-up call. It's a reminder that we can't just be passive bystanders when it comes to technology. We need to be informed, engaged, and willing to hold those in power accountable. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this. Suchir Balaji might be gone, but his story is far from over. It's a story that is still unfolding, raising really important questions about the future of AI, the role of whistleblowers, and our responsibility to make sure technology serves humanity, not the other way around. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking those questions, keep demanding answers, and keep Suchir Balaji's memory alive. His story is a tragedy, yes, but it could also be a catalyst for change.